Hey little queens, so before you get into this little recap, I have one little exciting thing and also some other stuff. Again, as always, I will link the VR experience and the Massacre of the Bourgeoisie down below in the description box. As well, I will be linking the app. Now there is a new app, I will insert a screenshot right here. And this app is basically like eQuart messaging and stuff like this. I thought it was going to be called eQuart messaging, but kind of isn't. But supposedly when I read something on, I think it was the eQuart messaging Twitter account or on the Who is Mr. Robot account on Twitter. Again, if you don't follow them, follow them. They're saying like you could like text with the characters from the show. Don't really know what that means, but again, it is not a free app. It is, I think, like $2 or $3, something like that. I know some people are complaining about it. They're like, oh, why isn't it free and stuff? And you know, I mean, they have to make us pay for something, you know. Again, season 1 is on sale, I think, still at Target for $24.99. Please go check if I'm wrong about that. And also, there was some little things that I had noticed. Probably some of you guys had noticed before, but I was just like thinking more in the back of my mind. But the old guy who plays Price, that old guy who's always Angela, is from American Horror Story. He did kind of play like the same role in American Horror Story Coven, where he was that like old CEO kind of a dude, so to speak. And he is the one who is basically killed by Jessica Lange and Angela Bassett's character when they both went and they met with him to settle some kind of like truce and like some deal, stuff like this, because they're taking down the corporation, the Delphi Trust. So basically that to me kind of mirrored Mr. Robot, and I do wonder if American Horror Story Coven kind of inspired Sam Esmail just a little bit with like the kind of the creepiness and this that American Horror Story Coven had. And also, I believe Grace Gummer was in that season as well, aside from Freak Show as a lizard girl. I think she was one of the witches who killed the Axeman in one of the episodes. I want to say the Axeman Cometh or something like that. But aside from that, this is a recap on episode 7, and that is 2.5 Handshake. We will get into it. But, of course, if you do want me to keep tweeting them and emailing them and direct messaging the actors, actresses, and Mr. Robot on if we should make a Funko Pop for Mr. Robot. This is again the one I got sent from American Horror Story, Lady Gaga the Countess. You can watch, I mean, you can see my American Horror Story like inspired picture on Instagram. But I did get something, let me cover my address, sent from Mr. Robot. Now, of course, I had been wearing the shirts as well in previous recaps, etc., etc. But this is something that was really exciting. I will insert 2 screenshots here. And basically that is, yes, I got sent an fsociety mask. If you don't remember, there was kind of a, I think it was like a contest or like a giveaway. I don't remember if it was on Facebook or Twitter. I know they really don't do things on Instagram. I want to say it was probably Facebook, but I could be wrong. That they announced that they were giving away 100 masks. I want to say it was during the season 1 finale, but I could be totally wrong about it. But I do remember like entering and stuff like this. I was like, man, I didn't win one, because people were like, oh my god, like I got one in the mail, and I was like, but yes, I did get an fsociety mask. It is so cool. Again, I already inserted the screenshots and stuff, but it is just amazing. And I found it so weird. Again, I'll insert my South by Southwest picture here. And basically at South by Southwest, I was basically holding one of these masks, which I thought was so kind of cool, because I remember at South by Southwest, I'd be like, can I take this? But of course, it was like a prop and stuff, and they're gonna be like, well, no, like you can't, sorry, you know. Maybe if it was like they say a different person, but no. But this is that's what it looks like on. And also, I am wearing a Kesha shirt from Warrior. If you don't really follow up with Kesha, I messaged Stephanie Corneliuson, who plays Joanna, about Kesha. She did have a sexual assault kind of related lawsuit and case going on against her producer. And basically, Stephanie and I were talking about, like, you know, like the Kesha case and everything like this. And I basically wore this shirt because there was a lawsuit that she had recently just dropped in New York. She had dropped her one in LA, but she has her Fuck the World tour going on and stuff like this. So if you do see Kesha or anything, please just support Kesha. It's a crazy thing, and it's kind of sad and kind of disheartening when you think about the entertainment industry, but what can you do? So again, this is the recap on episode 7. That is 2.5 Handshake. So with that being said as well, I know this is a long intro getting to the recap, but next week is the last week before college starts for me. So if these recaps are like a day or two, or maybe until the weekend delayed, I am going to apologize in advance, but just know it's going to be the first week of college, and it's going to kind of intertwine with Lady Gaga's new single coming out, And also American Horror Story coming back on the 14th. I believe Mr. Robot ends on the 14th or 12th, something like that, on a Wednesday. So again, apologies in advance that these are in delay. We do see Tyrell, we see Leon, we see Elliot at the church, the website, and basically all these things. And we see Portia, you know, she's talking and stuff. And then we see Angela. Oh, well, Portia Doubleday is Angela, sorry. And then we see Stephanie Corneliuson's character, and she is with the baby. And that was kind of interesting. So we see Joanna. She walks in with like a Sephora bag, and there is a gift, and it is earrings. And we see Tyrell. Now, I thought this was a recent thing, but of course this is a flashback scene, as they have been messing with us this whole season. And it's at like a white party or something like this. And they're like, oh, like this is Sharon Knowles, and this is like the guy that she was talking to, you know, that she was like, oh, like I have Tyrell's baby and stuff, like I need the money, everything like this. And basically, like kind of like next CEO dude at the time. And again, if you don't remember, Sharon Knowles is the lady who basically Tyrell choked to death on the top of the building. So she's there with her baby on the sidewalk, and she's like playing, you know, with it and stuff like this. After like we get that little flashback, so to speak, and she's just like smiling, and she like looks up at this one lady who walks by, and she basically throws red paint on her, and she's like, you capitalist pig and stuff, and she just starts screaming, and like the Mr. Robot stuff comes in and stuff, and we kind of get a zoom in or frame of like the ultrasound picture and stuff like this, and it's like the baby basically. And then we move on to Elliot. Basically he is, you know, just talking about all these things and like drinks and stuff like this. And again, when he's in the basement, you do have to remember, he was beat up, but Mr. Robot did tell him like, hey, like I took it for you. So, you know, Elliot kind of has like that split personality in a way where if it's not him, it's Mr. Robot, but in reality it's still Elliot, because you know it's Elliot's body, even though it's like Mr. Robot, like his coping mechanism, so to speak. So he's like, I protected you and everything like this again. And then he's like, you know, like when you protected me, he's like, I had never seen that before. And I think this was in reference to last week's episode where we had the 90s sitcom. If you haven't watched last week's recap, I answered it like 3 little pictures of that and stuff like this. And then it's like, I still want to know what happened to Tyrell, you know, like the guy in the trunk and stuff like this. And like, what happened? Like, what is it like about Tyrell that he can't like remember, that he can't picture together or piece together and stuff like this? And then he's basically asked like, are you afraid of like the truth, or like are you afraid of knowing, or are you afraid of telling me, and this like this, because he is basically talking to himself. And then he's like, you know what, I just want no more denial. He's like, I want to accept it all and just move on and stuff like this. And again, Mr. Robot asks Elliot, like, what is the last thing you remember, Elliot, and stuff like this. And again, as we have been seeing in like the beginning of episodes, when they give us like little recaps of like bits and pieces that we have to put together as the audience, he tells them, all I remember is popcorn. And we move on to Angela, and she's there with the FBI agent, and then she's like, oh, can you hold for a moment, because she's on the phone with Darlene, and she's telling her how to hack the FBI and everything like this. And then she's like, you know, I kind of saw you on the restricted floor and everything like this. She's like, you weren't just like passing through by accident and stuff like this. So she basically asks her, what's up with that, you know, why were you on that restricted floor? And then she tells her like, oh, like, you know, I was just making plans with Agent Thomas, that guy who was like hitting on her and stuff like that. Kind of gave her like a little bit of a roadblock. So she's like, you know what? She's like, I'm gonna tell you like the truth about you, Angela. The FBI agent Pierrot asked her, and she says, your story just fascinates me. She's like, you leave all safe, like, you know, like a week before the hack and everything like this. And then she's like, you come and you work here at Evil Corp, you know, kind of like nothing happened, etc., etc. But obviously Angela went off on her own. She was talking to her like lawyer, attorney lady, and she was also talking to Colby and stuff like this. So, you know, there's a lot happening that she probably doesn't know, but she may already know. And then she's like, you know what, I was going to drop by anyways and ask, you know, for a statement and ask you some questions and anything like this. So it's kind of like, it's a good thing that we're talking now and stuff. And then Angela is basically like, oh, you know, like, that's fine, like, I'd be happy to and stuff like this. And then she tells her again, which I kind of found interesting, you know, getting a mask in the mail. She says, it's not you, you know, she's like, it's like, okay and everything like this, but like, whoever you are, whoever you're planning to be, she's like, it's not you, like, I can kind of like see behind the mask that you're wearing, so to speak. And we did see a lot of things with mirrors in the beginning that I kept mentioning, seeing people's true reflections, so to speak, and then also like the mask that they put on. I know Elliot had brought that up a lot. And then she basically is like, okay and stuff. And Darlene tells her over the phone, like, okay, this is what you do, like, here's a final command, you know, blah, 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 do this, hit this key, and then she tells her, okay, we own the FBI now. And then we go back to Mr. Robot and Elliot, and he basically asks Mr. Robot, like, how did I do it? How did I kill Tyrell? Again, it's more like a we, but in reality it is Elliot. So he tells him, like, okay, he was talking about how he killed a woman, and he was just going over and over and on about it. Again, that was Sharon Knowles, who he choked to death. And he basically also tells them, like, you know, like, we were basically going to be next. And he's like, after we ran the scripts and everything, and he was talking about, like, us being gods and such. And we do remember Tyrell saying that when he walked into, like, the fsociety place. He's basically like, we, again, we're going to be next. Like, he's going to kill us or whatever, you know, who knows. And then he talks about popcorn again. And he says, that's where Darlene said she hid the gun. Now, does that mean Darlene and them were planning on eliminating Tyrell? Because, you know, he's like part of Evil Corp and stuff. Who exactly knows? Because remember, Joanna and Elliot did have an encounter on the street and stuff. But again, we don't know how deep those encounters and those relationships, so to speak, are along with this whole scheme of plans. And then he's like, I didn't want to and stuff. But he's like, I shot him. But then he's like, I shot him. So when he says I shot him, that makes me or the audience as well think, like, did Mr. Robot actually shoot him, or did Elliot shoot him? Is that why Elliot can't remember? Who exactly knows? Maybe that does have part to play with that little, like, throwback episode from last week, where, you know, it's kind of like 90s and stuff like this, and the man in the trunk, and Mr. Robot wasn't telling Elliot about anything, and, like, you're imagining things, dude, but, again, that is probably why, because he was kind of coping and trying to figure out a way how to, like, deal with it, so to speak, and, like, oh, like, you know, like, Dad did it and stuff. And then we see Joanna, and she's getting choked in bed, you know, because she has all these weird fetishes, which is so awkward sometimes. And then she's like, okay, and stuff, and I guess she gets her fill afterwards. And then the guy, basically, that she's meeting with, tells her, like, you know, like, I have friends coming over, and blah, 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 because it's, like, her birthday, or it's their birthday, I'm not sure. No, it's her birthday also. And then he's like, you know, we're going to be done if, like, you don't show up to the party and stuff, because she's like, oh, I thought it's just us and stuff. He's like, I love you, but you're kind of like dragging me on for a while. And then we go back to, you know, 2 hours ago. No data can be found. The FBI agent are looking at the tape, and they're trying to find out, you know, what was Angel doing on that floor and stuff. Again, last week, if you do remember, Darlene did tell Angela, like, hey, if you don't basically help us hack, I can't delete the footage of you when you were in there, you know, like, putting all the little things and stuff. So again, Angela had to do that as much as she didn't want to, and anything else. And then she was like, you know, like, at the network team, we were hacked and stuff like this, and she's basically, you know, gonna leave and stuff. And she's like, check Angela Moss's computer. She's like, it's probably, you know, like, wiped clean and stuff like this. Like, Angela's smart, and smart enough to know, like, cover her trails. So as she's leaving, you see, like, E-Corp lighting up behind her. She's like, I'm gonna go to, like, a 4th of July barbecue, just, you know, be miserable there. And then basically we see Angela in the back of a taxi. And they're also talking about how there's no waste management, I believe, due to the 5-9 attack and stuff like this. And then they also say, oh, now we're accepting e-coins on the app. Again, maybe that's why the app has to be paid for this time. You know, the real-life app that I'm talking about. And then we also see that she meets Darlene and stuff like this. And then she's like, I'm an open book if there's any questions, blah, blah, blah. Like, you probably pieced it together. And she did mention Cisco. And then she also tells her that, again, you know, like, on Halloween, she's like, I remember y'all playing the scary movie, and she brings up the masks. Angela brings up the mask to Darlene and stuff like this. Again, I got something mask. And she basically is like, look, you know, like, this is just, like, weird and stuff. Kind of going off on, like, her own thing. She doesn't, like, say that, but, you know. And then she kind of just, like, looks to the left and the right and stuff. And I was wondering if they're being followed and stuff. Again, you never know with Dominique Pirot, because she is a very, like, shady FBI agent, so to speak. And she's very cunning in a way. And then she basically just goes inside. And we go to Elliot at the computer again. He is asked, like, you know, like, are you good, so to speak? Like, Miley, what's good, Nicki Minaj at the VMAs? And that guy who, like, beats him up, he's like, Ray asked you a question and stuff. He's like, do you believe him and stuff? He's like, yeah, I do. And he's like, okay. And then he's like, you're going to sit here and, like, you know, you're going to be here until you do what you're supposed to do and what you should have done in the first place. Just not look anywhere else where you were supposed to. And then he basically says, you know, like, how long will this take and stuff? And Elliot tells him, like, it's going to take, like, you know, like, a couple of hours to do this and stuff like this. And it takes time. And then he's like, you know, I thought you needed me in a way, or like I needed you, so to speak, like to be safe and everything like this. And that again leads into more and more things, probably about Ray's past, probably about Elliot, you know, like his little like whoop at the end of the episode and stuff like this, whatever that was. And then we see Darlene, we see Jack Black, Malala, and Cisco, and then they're like, oh, so this is happening tomorrow, whatever they're looking at on the computer. And then we see Joanna, and she's like, oh, like, hello, Derek, and stuff. She's, like, in his house and stuff, and he's like, you know, bad news, like, you weren't at the party and stuff, and, you know, what was gonna happen? And she's like, oh, but, like, and then he, like, pushes her away in a way, and he's like, no, like, I told you what was gonna happen, like, you dragged me out for too long, I knew you were bad news at that party when we met and stuff like this. And then she's like, you know what, like, I was busy tonight. Like, I was so lost before I met you, and then she's like, I was harassing my lawyer, and then she's like, this is what I was getting, and I'm pretty sure it is, like, the divorce papers, like, that's her birthday gift to him. She kind of just hands over papers through the red ribbon. Probably she's divorced from Tyrell if somehow she knows Tyrell's dead or not, who knows. Maybe it is Elliot sending her those things. Again, we won't truly know. I know Mr. Robot tweeted out, like, you wanted the truth, this is it. Shot Tyrell, but who really knows at this point, because Mr. Robot just loves to pull all these tricks on us. And then we kind of go back to Elliot and Ray, Craig Robinson's character. I'll say someone else's name. He's like, oh, you know, 200,000 down, blah, blah, blah. He's like, you're going to go back to your cage after this and stuff. And then he basically tells, like, his bodyguard or the person who beats up people for him to give him and Elliot a minute. I'm going to play chess. And then he's like, you know what? Thank you. And he's like, helping you and being your savior and stuff like this, but in reality, no. And then he's like, you know, like, my wife is so smart, and she was smarter than me. She was like a computer person and stuff like this, like Elliot. Probably why Ray was attracted to Elliot, because he knew Elliot probably could do what he needed to do, fix what needed to be fixed and stuff like this. And then he's like, you know, there's this idea for that website that he told Elliot not to go looking for and stuff like this. And he's like, I wasn't sure about it and everything like this, but the wife was kind of, in a way, pushing it, so to speak. Because he's like, you know, the money was good and everything like this, and, you know, they didn't expect it to go where it went, which was basically like human trafficking and this and that, all these kind of illegal things that they were selling on the website and stuff. And then he's like, you know what, but they made that deal that says the market will kind of dictate what is going to be sold and where their website will go, you know, make the most money. Like, that's what they have to do, that's what they have to do. But basically he also said, like, there was going to be no looking for him. The wife basically kind of gave him that thing, which is probably why he gave Elliot that, you know, like, role reversal, so to speak. And then he's like, you know what, like, it wasn't until, like, you kind of came along and stuff. And then he also does mention that stumbling around in the darkness. In a previous episode, he tells him, like, you know, I was wrong about that, too. He's like, you know, like, I should have, you know, just not have probably gone that far, so to speak, with his wife in the first place. In the sense of, you know, the wife is gone, the dog is basically dead now. But he is running this illegal site that he does not know really how to run, because he isn't a computer person. Even though that is his business, you know, he just doesn't know, and he's always going to have to be relying on someone. Like, in the back of his mind, you know, drawing conclusions from the context of this episode and this conversation. And then he's like, you know what, basically, thank you and stuff. But then he also asks Elliot, how much time do I have now? And I thought, you know, he was dying at first. He's like, we both knew exactly what was going to happen, and I let you back on the computer. And Elliot tells him, you know what, well, by the time, response, I guess, he's like, we're surrounded by now. And with that being said, he tells Elliot, you know, get out before they're here. And you know what, he's like, good luck, basically, out there in the world. This also probably meant, I guess, foreshadows, not mentions, probably like another little thing in this episode that was going to happen. And again, he tells Elliot, be careful. And I was just like, I thought this was like a Vera Part 2 situation. I'm pretty sure I had mentioned that in a recap before. But again, the guy who plays Vera, Elliot VR, I believe, he never like tweeted anything about being on season 2 and stuff, so probably won't be seeing him at all anymore. Talking about how he did this. So he's like, after I completed the migration and basically the task at hand, so to speak, he says, like, you know, he opened it up to everyone. Like, the website was basically everywhere there was an ad running, everywhere an ad wanted to run for it. It was open to the whole public, the whole world, so to speak. Anyone looking for Thai girls for sale. And with that being said, if you do remember, he said, oh, you know how, like, you can't find this website, and, like, this website is hard to get, like, an account for and stuff like this. Like, I guess potential buyers and stuff have to go through a lot before they're allowed to make, like, an account on that website. Because, again, they are watching out for FBI people and blah, 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 and they're really doing, like, some black market stuff. So basically, FBI found out after he sent in an anonymous tip with the email and stuff like this. And then, this is like his chance to start again. This is his chance with Mr. Robot. And then he says, this is where Mr. Robot and I shook hands, and this is all to help with the pain and everything like this. So, again, that does make sense as the episode is titled Handshake. East Band kind of a thing going on. It's like the house and stuff like this. It kind of reminds me of, I think it was like the sit-in, the Democratic sit-in or something like this. I don't know, whatever happened at the Capitol. And then again, it says fsociety attacks, the U.S. Capitol building with the bull balls. So if you do remember, I think it was part 1 of the opening episode. They did like, castrate the bull on the New York, I think, stop place. I don't really know the streets of New York. I saw it like on some other things, but I can't remember right now. They basically threw them in the Capitol building. They're like, oh, like the FBI and the Homeland Security are all going to be all over and blah, 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 and stuff. And then you see a bunch of e-kits being sold. Don't really know what those are. And Angela's talking with this old guy who is her dad. And he's like, you know what, like, we can handle this lawsuit and stuff like this. Like, I'll handle it. And she says that E-Corp will basically settle if they drop those contingency plans. And if you don't remember what those are, I want to say it is basically, I want to say a very deep investigation almost into E-Corp. I could be totally wrong, but what I'm getting from what Angela was fighting for with her attorney and her lawyer lady, that's kind of what I'm going based off of. And then she's like, she's like, I will make sure all these inspections, again, will go forward internally. And he's like, oh, is that what they told you and stuff like this? Like, are they just trying to gyp you and blah, blah, blah and stuff? And then she's like, like, you're laughing at me, but over there they respect me. I mean, do they really respect Angela, or are they playing her? We want to believe they're probably playing her, but again, we won't know until later on in the series, later on in this episodes, as I say, what is truly Angela's position there. If Angela will maybe end up dead, we don't know. But basically, he asks her, like, who are you and stuff. And again, he mentions a mask, which brought me back to the FBI. When Dominique Pirot was like, like, I don't know who you are and stuff like this, but, like, I can kind of see through you, but it's not you, whatever Angela's trying to be, like, about, they can kind of see through it. So, he's like, like, you need not just my permission, but you need, like, all these signatures or whatever. And then she's like, I got all those signatures, more than 2/3, like, I'm just waiting on you, so to speak. And then she is kind of, brought around the subject of money over everything. And basically saying, like, people love money more than anything. They're willing to just settle in a way. Because he tells her, like, like, you're not getting the money, I'm getting the money. Like, what is this all about and stuff like this. And then she basically said this is, like, a courtesy call, so he knows. Basically, I guess, what she's involved in, what's going to happen and stuff like this. So it's all weird stuff happening. And then we go to Elliot and Leon. They're at that basketball game, as always, in the park and stuff like this. And they're just talking, and there's these, like, white guys that kind of approach them, so to speak, and they kind of, are just like, hey, tell your buddy this, and blah, 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 and stuff. And he's like, I'm good, and everything like that. And then he's like, bravery is contagious, blah, blah, blah. And again, kind of getting to Elliot's face. And this is who I thought, basically Vera 2 would be. Because, like, oh, they're connected to Greg Robinson's character. This may be this. Because, he kind of busted Vera the same way, so to speak. So again, I thought, ooh, maybe this is going to be more trouble. I don't know. And then he's like, you better talk to your boy here and stuff like this. And then he's like, I had 800 Bitcoins. And he's like, now? He's like, I have no access to anything. The website. He's like, you're gonna pay me back. He's like, we'll settle this, later on one-on-one and stuff like this. And then Leon tells Elliot, he's like, you know what, remember, cuz he's like, lying ain't your friend. And what that truly means, maybe he's lying to himself, maybe Mr. Robot's lying to himself, maybe they're both lying to each other. In a way, like those delusions and illusions and control and all of this that Elliot goes on and off about. But we go to basically the contingency being the biggest lawsuit that has dropped, that Price, again, tells Angela. And then he's basically saying, like, it was the exact opposite and stuff like this. And Angela's like, like, you didn't ask for this, but this is basically what you wanted. Like, I guess Angela deduced what he wanted from whatever. But in reality, it's like, maybe she is, I don't know what the saying would be, like, gonna hang her own self with her own noose or whatever. And then he was also kind of agreeing, like, you know what, well, a settlement is cheaper and stuff, and, like, we're just hemorrhaging money as a company right now. And then she kind of asked, like, why is it important and stuff like this to drop that contingency and stuff like this. And then she asks, is it to protect some kind of, like, evil secret agenda or whatever. And this is, again, where the preview from last week comes in. And he says, isn't everyone kind of protecting, like, some kind of evil secret agenda? Angela with fsociety doing this, and, you know, Elliot and blah blah blah. We don't really know, I guess, so to speak, everyone's true intentions thus far. We can only theorize and stuff like this. And then she's like, well, you know what, here is my truth and stuff like this, or evil secret agenda. And basically it is when Colby told her that she can make changes from the inside and stuff like this. Again, is this like a trap or whatever? We don't completely know. Again, we can just theorize why she's there. And I thought at first she said waste management, but it looked like risk management. And then she's like, that's what I want, that's what I'm asking for, and stuff like this. Like, you know, that's how she wants to make changes from the inside out, you know, not to let anyone else go through the situation that she did with her mother. So, he also tells her, like, you know, like, my birthday's today, and then she's like, oh, you know what, I actually, and then he's like, no, he's like, don't believe what you hear out there, like, I never, like, tell my real birthday to anyone. And then she's like, oh, well, you know what, happy birthday, and stuff like this, and then he asks her, do you want to celebrate with me tonight? Obviously, probably sexual. And then she's like, no, and then he's like, oh, well, you know what, maybe next year. So again, this may hint at something that we don't really know about, and that is, you know, basically where we're left off with Angela and Price. So we then go back to Elliot at his church group. Now, if you do remember, Elliot had this whole, like, spiel, so to speak, where he was like, oh, you know, this and that, and like, we can't believe this. Kind of, I guess, Mr. Robot's speech in Times Square in a way, but obviously Elliot and his Times Square is this church group, so to speak. And then, you know, he wants to tell the lady, you know, he tells her, like, sorry for the outburst last month and stuff like this. And then she hugs him and stuff. He's like, oh, let go, because, you know, Elliot doesn't like being touched. I would touch Rami Malek. And he's like, you know, like, you kind of do seem afraid and stuff like this, but it's like, but that kind of makes you vigilant, you know, like, you're a vigilant citizen, so to speak. And that's a whatever. And she's like, I see you talking to him, and like it's all over your face and stuff. And then at first, it's kind of like a Jesus God reference to Mr. Robot, because you do remember Tyrell kind of was like, oh, we can be God and stuff. And again, that does remind me of Lana Del Rey's Gods and Monsters song. And she says, like, you know, you're not really alone. Basically, she's trying to tell him and stuff like this. Like, I'm gonna give you some alone time, so you can, you know, just talk to him and talk to Jesus, so to speak. And when he is saying that, at the same time, there is like a "you are not alone" kind of sign up on top of him, and stuff like this. And if you remember, that is what Mr. Robot kind of just always told Elliot, I guess, growing up, so to speak, or near his death after the cancer. Like, I'm never gonna leave you. You're never gonna be alone, kiddo. Stuff as such. And he basically says, you know what, like, I need your help. Like, I've been lost these past few weeks with the rain and stuff. And he also kind of comes to a consensus, like, hey, I have to finish with Evil Corp. Like, I don't know what to do and stuff like this. And stuff, but I just need to finish, like, what I started. And Mr. Robot comes back and says, you know, why did you listen to me? Like, when that note was on the server at Evil Corp and stuff like this. He's like, you know, like, you followed me off that subway and then to fsociety and stuff like this. And then at E Corp, he's like, you basically, your choices and stuff like this kind of led you to where you wanted to, and like following, I guess, your own stuff. Because he's like, I was following your lead. And with that being said, Mr. Robot does tell Elliot, like, people want to follow you because you're a leader and stuff like this. And that is the way, like, how you need to finish, which is by leading. And if you don't remember, he has been having, like, some kind of, like, distance, I guess, in a relationship, so to speak, with Darlene and Angela and stuff like this. In the sense of, he doesn't truly help them. Like, he's like, oh, like, leave Angela out of this, blah, blah, blah. Like, I can handle this, and, like, you shouldn't be doing this, and, like, let it go in a way. But again, he was always telling Darlene, like, hey, like, it's going to be the aftermath. That's going to be hard to deal with. Obviously, maybe himself or not. But it was a whole situation where he just basically has to take control again. Like, he started it, he needs to finish it, and stuff like this. And then we go to risk management. And basically, Angela's now working there and stuff like this. And that's what she wanted. And then this guy is basically saying, after 5-9, you know, like, they help the crisis response team and stuff like this. He tells her, you know, you need to be smart, discreet, etc., get in, get out, you know, have quick answers, etc. And then they're talking about that class action lawsuit in Flint, Michigan, you know, obviously with the water and stuff like this. This basically mirrors society in our today lives. And then he's like, you know what, Gideon and I work together, because it's like, I know you knew Gideon Goddard and stuff like this. And then he's like, you know, I'm going to check in, you know, once a week, see how you're doing now that you're working here and stuff like that. And he basically says, you know what, I'll be around. And Angela is not truly having that, because Angela did tell Price, like, that's what I want. I know there's a position. She has a mission of her own, so to speak, that she is going to do whatever it takes to basically, I guess, retribution for her mother or something. Or maybe now there's just something deeper because she is at Evil Corp. Now she's at the risk management. Now she's gonna be seeing that these inspections go through internally. Who really knows what Angela's deal is now, so to speak? And basically, she says, she wants to sit on these daily debriefing meetings and get up to speed faster and stuff like this. And he says, you know what, okay. And when he asks her, like, did you get in okay with all these protesters and stuff? And he's like looking out the window like Price did. She just walks out because maybe it just reminds her of Price again. And then we go to Elliot and that pyro girl, and he talks about how the regiment kind of led him back to the start. Kind of went, probably I think like a complete 360, not 180. And it didn't really help him, and then he's like, it's not really a destination, but like the journey and stuff. But then he's like, in a way, questioning the journey of that destination that he ends up at is always going to be him. Again, like thinking he's going away and stuff like this, and the regiment is helping him get rid of Mr. Robot, but again, kind of needs Mr. Robot, and obviously he kind of led back into himself again, and he is with Mr. Robot again, and he can't really destroy that part of himself. And then he basically just, I guess, burns, his spiral or his composition book and stuff like this. And he gets jumped by some white guys again on the street. Those are the same guys from the park. And then when they're punching him, we kind of see flashes of Mr. Robot again. Mr. Robot did tell him when Ray was basically beating him up with that guy. He's like, I took the punches for you, Mr. Robot took the punches. In reality, again, it is Elliot, because, Elliot is Mr. Robot. If you really still haven't figured that out, if you're still in season 1, you should watch season 1. Basically, if they're punching Mr. Robot, they're punching Elliot. And then they're gonna basically, kill him and stuff because they turn him around, or maybe they'll rape him, I don't know. And then Leon basically comes in and slices them all. He doesn't just shank them or stab them. Leon slices everyone. Like, he's like some kind of ninja. And I saw Suicide Squad, and he reminded me of that hoe with, like, the little katana and stuff like this. I think that's the person's name. And he basically saves Elliot. And this is what I found interesting. Leon basically told him, when you see a white rose, say, I did you good. Now, what can of worms does this open up? We don't completely know. Obviously, the FBI agents met with the Dark Army. The Dark Army was kind of sent after to kill them in a way, get rid of them, eliminate all of them. She is going after Angela and fsociety. Someone else is going after Elliot. That was Ray. But also, in a way, Leon is part of White Rose. Is Leon like a plant for fsociety? Is he going to bring him into fsociety? And White Rose is kind of maybe exploiting him, as well as the Dark Army. We don't really know. Maybe they probably did something to Elliot. We don't completely know. Again, what kind of worms this opens up. And then he's like, I'm going to be rooting for you always, cuz, and stuff like this. And then as we go to the commercial, we do see the fact that, oh, Elliot like burned his composition book, but now you don't have to, and you can get it on the secrets. It says pre-order Mr. Robot book. Probably at the whoismrrobot.com website. Again, everything will be linked down below for the VR and stuff like this. You can just, find your way around in the description box. And this kind of reminded me of the pop-up Walking Dead book. If you haven't seen that one, I saw it, and I remember thinking, like, hey, there should probably be, like, a Mr. Robot book coming out soon. I don't know if I tweeted it out, though. But I'm like, oh, hey, now there's a Mr. Robot book, like, who would have known? But getting back into it, this guy's talking about how there's no food at this meeting and stuff like this, and Angela's there in that meeting also. And then she's like, you know what, we need to settle when Susan is back, wherever Susan is in this whole show, so to speak. And then she tells them, like, what if we figure out these patterns and we can just deal with these future issues? If only I have access to, all these files and stuff like this. She's like, I can work on it right away and stuff like this. Again, this is probably Angela trying to, like, get some information, trying to, like, do what she has to do personally, a personal investigation, so to speak. Private investigator, Angela Moss. And then she's like, we'll basically, again, always know what to do in the future and stuff like this. And then they basically have the meeting adjourned because there's no food and stuff like this. And they're like, you know what, we're just not going to do anything because, Susan's not here and the food isn't here. And this guy's like, oh, we're really going to finish and the food isn't here. It's like meeting adjourned and stuff like this. So we go to this guy talking to Angela one-on-one. He says, I know who you were. He's like, I don't know whose dick you sucked. Lana Del Rey fucked my way up to the top. You can listen to that song. But obviously we don't really think she did. But he says, whatever you did to get here, basically, either you fucked your way up to the top or, you did stuff with Price. He's like, that's none of my business in a way. But he says, Price told me to deal with you the way I wanted to deal with you. Now, what does this mean? Maybe they're in cahoots against Angela. Maybe they're just keeping her around, dangling her around, playing her, even though she thinks she's playing them. Who really knows? Maybe that's why he left it open to, you know what, maybe next year. She may want to do something else higher up in the company to do whatever she wants to do, but maybe she will have to give her body up to Price. Who really knows? Um, with that being said, you know, the shrimp just comes in, shrimp cocktail, and he's like, you know what, enjoy it, have fun. And then we go to Mr. Robot and Hewlett Packard. They are working together like commercials. I was always wondering why they came out, but that's what it is. We go to Elliot and his therapist, who we haven't seen in a while. And she's like, oh, like, good news, you know? Like, is there anything, like, exciting that's happened in your life recently? Like they say. And he's like, you know what? Like, I'm not happy and stuff like this. He's like, but I got it this morning and stuff like this. And then he's like, in a way, he's like, now we trust each other. Like, it's subtle. Like, you know, they're playing this chess game, he and Mr. Robot. So see who takes full control, but Elliot obviously couldn't get rid of Mr. Robot. Mr. Robot can't completely take over Elliot. Stuff like this. So, you know, he's like, you know what? We settled. We shook hands. Again, referencing the name of this episode. And he's like, you know what? What really helped me is like, you know, I tried to get rid of Mr. Robot at my mom's house and stuff like this. He's like, but you know, I can't really truly destroy that part of myself. And then she kind of questions him, and she's like, where do you think you are, like, right now and stuff like this? Because the setting is in her office and stuff. And then he's like, you know, you haven't been staying with your mother. And there is a red light flashing like an alarm in the background. And it does seem that Elliot was in prison this whole time. And that to me was a very big shock because I did not figure that out, so to speak. Like, I guess now I can kind of see it with the same regimen, like where else was he to go, but I did not see that coming because I also wondered who that lady is and like the TV and stuff, and now I realize like, oh, he had a regimen because there wasn't anything else for him to do, and there's no computer, so he can't do anything and stuff like this. So that was weird. And then he talks about how the whole time, you know, like to control, sometimes you do need this illusion and stuff like this. And he was like, you know, he tells us as the audience, as his friend in his mind, he's like, you know what, sorry for not being honest with you. Like, I needed to get better and stuff like this. He's like, this is the last time I'm going to keep secrets from you. When have we heard that? And he tells him, you know what, he's like, I only did this to cope. And he's like, now we can trust each other and let's shake on it. And that basically concludes the recap of Who is Mr. Robot. And for next week's episode, so to speak, we see some kind of secret surveillance, and we see that fsociety is possibly in some sort of trouble. But aside from that, season 3 has been greenlit for 2017. I'm hoping it's kind of coming in for June 24th, or, you know, like a mid-June premiere, because again, if these things keep overlapping with college, they are going to be on a delay, and I really don't want that, but of course, what can I do? But again, season 3 has been greenlit. I will insert everything in the description bar down below and stuff like this. You can click on those links and blah, blah, blah. So go congratulate Mr. Robot. Go congratulate Sam Esmail and all the actors and actresses and stuff like this. And I know I'll be, you know, taking pictures of this mess and just being my little fsociety self. I kind of want to wear this out for, like, Halloween or something, but I'm afraid of, like, ruining it or, like, you know, crunching it up or something like this. I don't know. I'm kind of scared of just, you know, messing it up. So I don't know if I'll do that and stuff like this. But anywho, I hope you really like the review. We'll recap. And please subscribe. Please like the video and anything to kind of help me out there. So again, please like, rate, share, subscribe. And anywho, again, I want to say hi to Rami Malek. Stay safe and God bless. So, hi, Rami Malek.